Hi guys, this is Sabine from Zennumerostar.com. This video is inspired by one of my subscribers who inquired how to deal with the symptoms of an intense emotional purge because she's going through a lot of sadness and pain, and she wanted to know how to deal with all of that, with those symptoms that can sometimes be overwhelming and emotionally challenging. If you remember my last video on emotional purging and detoxing, I mainly mentioned the steps to conduct an emotional purge, and in the related blog post I mentioned some of the symptoms I had experienced myself. This was my way to show you that those symptoms were normal, and even if you may not experience them all, they are quite common among the manifestors that I know. You'll find the video around how to release trapped emotions with emotional purging and manifest fast in the description box below. The thing is, sometimes you're going through an emotional detox without even knowing that you're going through a purge. This is even worse. What happens is that when you are awakening to the real you, to your power, obviously you want to claim your manifesting power and lead your life. This implies that you need to change the beliefs that no longer serve you. Those beliefs are running the show right now because they are the ones through which you filter the data or the situation or your circumstances of your physical reality. In turn, that filter leads to a certain interpretation of that data, and the interpretation is usually negative, which is why you're watching this video. But to understand that you are going through an emotional purge, consciously or unconsciously, you are doing yourself a favor. You are releasing trapped emotions that would keep running the show if you are not letting them go from your system. This is because what you believe to be true has been confirmed by your heart area. In that sense, some other coaches, and I am one of them, would say that your heart can be considered your subconscious mind, where your beliefs are stored. So your brain is where you think, and your heart is where you validate or not your conscious thoughts. This is why you may not always manifest what you want, because you formulate your wish in your brain, but if your heart instructs your brain that it's a no-go because of a previous experience or a limiting belief, you may as well shout or sing your affirmations, nothing will happen, other than you being frustrated and exhausted. In other words, please understand that manifesting is not an intellectual process. It is an inner process with two components, your brain and your heart. Leave one out of the equation behind and you cannot experience exactly what you want. The reason I'm very clear is because you need to understand that an emotional purge is a good thing in your awakening journey. Simply because as you change the filter of your perception and come up with new beliefs, for those beliefs to be validated and solidified, you need your heart center to be on board. And if in your heart there are too many conflicted emotions, that component of manifesting cannot be optimal and cannot function properly. That's why I am guiding you on the emotional purge in my first course on self-concept, because if you want to become the version of you who can manifest whatever and whoever, you are bound to go through an emotional purge. So yes, I could say that an emotional purge is also synonymous of letting go of overwhelming and negative emotions. You may have watched videos that talk about letting go. I too have made videos actually about the beauty of letting go. As you know, it is never about letting go of your desire. It is letting go of the control, letting go of the lack, letting go of the need, letting go of the despair, letting go of the doubt, letting go of the fear, letting go of the old to welcome the new. Now, if you're going through an emotional purge, I understand that it can be an unsettling experience to say the least. but please be conscious of the fact that your body is giving you a nudge that you are ready to become the new version of yourself who manifests whatever you want. It is by welcoming and living your life with other emotions and another filter of your physical reality that you will be successful. When you have an infection, you get a cure and you get better. But usually, if it wasn't for the infection, you wouldn't necessarily adopt a new healthy way of life. I'm taking this as an example because I'm a huge fan of natural cures like ginger, lemon, honey, and all the rest. My grandmother was into it and rarely called doctors, preferring to heal herself with natural cures. Sometimes I must admit that it takes a body malfunction for me to stop and listen to my body, see what it needs. When you go through an emotional purge, you're beyond that point when you are doing it unconsciously. It means that your body can no longer function properly with all the sadness, all the grief, all the anger, all the guilt, and so forth. Your body alerts you that enough is enough. So I understand that most of the time it can even feel confusing and disturbing, especially if you experience the symptoms for the first time. But it is your body doing you a favor. But to be honest, when you start an emotional purge, unless you belong to a group where all of you go through the same experience, like a challenge for instance, this may feel like a lonely journey. I felt very isolated during my first purge. It was an intense emotional purge that occurred after I had dealt with lots of wounds, including the passing of someone very dear to me. Even though I had been crying and all, I hadn't processed all my negative emotions, and it had come to a point where I couldn't advance any longer. I was feeling stuck and imprisoned in my wishful thinking without being able to concretely manifest anything I wanted. In fact, everything was going the opposite direction, so much so that at some point I thought I was doomed or something. It was that bad. The first purge happened at a time where I wasn't sure what I was doing, but I knew that I had to do something to stop the negative patterns that were leading my life. To be honest with you, I was depressed at the time, and the reason why I'm sharing this with you is that I felt very vulnerable. I just wanted the pain to stop, and I didn't know who to turn to. At the time, I was studying every weekend in Dublin, in Ireland, to become a Reiki master, so I told my teacher about my symptoms, and she helped me through with some Reiki healing, which was great. But when I was on my own in my flat, it wasn't so great anymore. That's why I thought it would be a good idea to give you a message of hope and encouragement today, because know that you are not alone in this, and going through an emotional purge is a sure sign that you will soon be on the other side of the manifesting power where everything is possible. Releasing trapped emotions is temporary unless you dwell in the negative emotions, in which case you need to notice that trap and shake it up by consciously understanding that the purge is for your own good and that you're getting closer to your manifestation now. Before I give you some practical tips on how to deal with the emotional symptoms, I will answer one question I got the other day. Well, it wasn't so much of a direct question than it was of a rhetorical question. One of my clients said, "God, I hope that purge will not last for too long because I don't know how much longer I can take it." Releasing trapped emotions can be quick, but can last a few days. It rarely lasts for weeks or months unless you come from far. My first purge, because I didn't know it was a purge, lasted a few weeks, during which I was very depressed and unable to hope for a better future. I thought that it was my final destination and that I had failed in my attempt to want something better for myself. Reiki helped me, and then when I became a Reiki master myself, I applied Reiki on me, but I applied it in such a way that I wanted to remove the pain without being conscious, that I could get to the other side where I could manifest what I wanted. So it took some time for me. It doesn't have to be that long for you though. I went through another emotional purge when I realized that I had to break through negative beliefs, but that time, because I was conscious of what I was doing, it took me only a few days, during which I was feverish, I had some muscular pain as if I had the flu, I couldn't eat too much and so forth. But because I knew it was normal, I came up with a plan to get better quickly. So here are 5 tips I would like to give to you. See if there is one or more that resonate with you. And please comment down below which ones you're going to implement, or if you have already implemented one or the other. Also, I welcome any comment with additional tips, because I'm sure that all the manifestors interested in that topic of emotional purge would be thankful to you. Tip number 1, go through the purge without attachment. I talked about it in my previous video, but when I asked some of you, it was a bit difficult to detach your situations from the process of releasing emotions. And yet, you are not supposed to release one situation over the emotion, simply because the situation or circumstance is not the only circumstance activated with that type of emotion. It's really the emotion or emotions that you need to release. Leave your circumstances alone. This is important because in my experience, again, if you release your circumstances without dealing with the related emotion, another similar circumstance could arise, not with the same person or not right now, but you are not immune to circumstances generated by that one emotion you need to deal with. You see what I mean? Please watch my last video as well as the first one I did on this if you are not sure on how to proceed with the emotional purge. Again, the link will be in the description box down below. Tip number 2, pat yourself on the back. What does that mean? It means that you are not sick, you haven't done anything wrong. This is a natural process of manifesting if you have trapped emotions that need releasing and you are journeying towards your true power as a manifester. That demands courage and persistence, so well done you. Notice your journey, notice your effort, and reward yourself by adding another manifestation to experience on your diary, for instance, once you are through with this transition. Tip number 3, pay attention to your diet. And by diet, I don't mean that you have to eliminate weight. I mean pay attention to your fluid intake, for instance. I won't go into details, but I did have some gastric problems that required my liquid intake to increase. So I was drinking more water than usual, and because I wasn't a huge fan of plain water, I decided to add some lemon and then some ginger. So nowadays, if I don't have my tea with ginger, lemon and honey, I am grumpy. So I can only thank the last purge, I suppose. Tip number 4, pay attention to your progress. That helped me when I thought that I was going to stay in that hellhole for life. I remember thinking, what did I do to deserve that? That's crazy. But after a short while, as I started to feel better, and that is key, as I started to feel better, I wrote down every single progress and focused my attention on my progress. I then became fully conscious of my journey and I felt truly empowered, because this is not how you're going to know that you are finally empowered and you can manifest from a place of power. It is as you feel better. So don't think that it might happen overnight for you, but even if it takes a bit of time, if it takes a few days, notice every single little progress that you make. Tip number 5, pay attention to your sleeping patterns. Make sure that your bedroom is not too hot or too cold, that you haven't eaten too much, that you didn't have too much liquid so that you can sleep all night without going to the bathroom, that your thoughts are not negative or fixated on your circumstances before going to bed. Now, I know that some of you love listening to tapes or recording of meditations and all, and maybe those are fantastic, I don't know. But some neurologists agree to say that your sleeping patterns are not to be disturbed. So if you want to listen to a recording of some kind, how about listening to it as you go to bed in the background and let it play, for instance, for 30 minutes until you fall asleep? Obviously, this is up to you. So who am I to tell you to stop listening to recordings all night long? I'm no one to tell you this. The decision is entirely yours to make. Recording do work as long as you feel totally relaxed. For instance, I personally use them when I nap. Because I do power naps for no longer than 20 minutes a day, I occasionally listen to a recording of my choice, but I will not listen to any of them during the night. If you see how babies go to sleep, for instance, some of them need to be pat on the head or listen to some relaxing music, but none of them is going to have the head pat all night or the recording of a relaxing music played all night either. So that's my take on it. Another time when I used to listen to those types of recording was when I was on the beach over the summer. I was completely relaxed in front of the sea, so they did work very well then, and I used them every day for a few weeks because I was in Spain. That wasn't this year, that was 2 years ago. If you have liked this video, I would be really thankful to you for a thumbs up. Thank you anyway for watching. As always, I do believe in you. I know that you can do it. So on that note, happy manifesting.